He was wise, though, to hold land, because the taxes would not be as great if you had a structure on it too.
Oh.
Right? So anyway, that's what George Washington did. But he takes his career as a surveyor and he places it on hold. He's told that his half-brother dies at Mount Vernon, leaving a widow and a daughter to inherit the farm. But presented to a man in marriage, right? So anyway, George will later learn that the daughter dies, and now he knows that he's next in line to inherit the Mount Vernon farm.
Okay. Oh, that's how he got it. Huh?
He has to outlive the widow, though.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't wish her any harm, but he convinced her to rent him the farm. She can go on and wed another man and leave Mount Vernon in Washington's hands, and that's what happened. He's renting it before he even owns it, and applying what he's learned from his half-brothers, his father, and his beloved mother Mary to carry on the family business, right? But how does George begin his military career? Well, did you hear there was a 7 years war going on at sea between the French and the British?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were lands that lay west. George had already surveyed much of it.
Mm-hmm.
Parts of West Virginia, today Ohio as well. Pittsburgh, where three rivers merge. George would receive a blue coat as a Virginia militia officer. Many think the British had a hand in this to send him back out into the wilderness to find out what the French intentions were. How well trained and equipped were they at Fort Duquesne? And George was also to send a message not to colonize the lands that lay west. But before he would leave the wilderness, muskets were fired and a French diplomat lay dead. It is this incident that would cause the French and Indian War to come off of the ocean and into the wilderness that lay west. Both England and French, of course, needed a scapegoat to explain to the rest of the European powers how the lands that were off limits were now being fought for. And that scapegoat was, of course, George Washington. Remember, he takes the position behind what would only be called a fort out of necessity. He held French prisoners to explain to a larger force what had occurred, of course. And so he did, just as he thought. Muskets were fired again, and he held out his position long enough to explain with his own quill what had occurred. But his French translator was dead, and he didn't really know what he'd signed. Have you heard that before? Any event, George Washington implicated himself further in the atrocity that sparked the French and Indian War. He bore the burden, shouldered the burden for this war that came. And he resigned his commission when he heard all the buzz in England and news around Europe too. What would he do? He returns to Mount Vernon happy to farm again, washing his hands off this military career. He'd met the right woman, named Martha. To dates, he was engaged, destined to be a step-parent to two. And so he is forced to delay the wedding, although the date had been set. Because General Braddock would command him to return into the wilderness, but simply as the attaché to lead the way through the wilderness. Not to have any opinion, but there George would return wearing again his coat of blue. And he had the audacity to reveal what he knew, what Braddock might need to know to save his men's lives. Remember, he would apprise him of what he had witnessed, that if they march in tight formations, they might very well lose their lives, because the French fought on their own terms, hid behind trees, and even fired upon officers first. The pivotal question would be, But General Braddock, with all his education, military training, standing upon a pile of money and family tradition, listened to an inferior man like George Washington?
Didn't
He
listen to him.
certainly would not. And he paid for it with his life.
Mm.
But when the muskets were fired on the officers first, indeed